Hopefully you've had some time to try Squaresville on your own and see what you come up with. But if you're stuck and you need a hint, let me give you a couple ideas. Number one, probably my favorite tip, is in problem solving, try and think about solving a simpler problem. This is really complicated, too many things to count. So let's take it down really small, but try and keep the structure of the problem the same. So imagine the simplest town I can think of is called Squareville, and it looks like this. That's it. That's Squareville. One square. How many ways? Well, that's easy for me to count. 1, 2. There are no other ways. Simple problem. Then crank it up just a little bit. Well, what would be the next thing you might do to make this a little more complicated? You might make a slightly larger town that looks like this. And try and count those. And if you do this a couple times, maybe you'll start to see a pattern. You'll start to see structure. It might help you with the giant 5x5 Squaresville. So that's one strategy. Solve a simpler problem first. Another one is when you see a problem that's difficult like this, you could try working backwards. So think about, I want to get to B. How do I get to B? Well, where would I have had to have come from to get to B? Well, the last move, right before you get to B, you're either going to be there or there. If you're here, the only thing you can do is an up. And if you're there, the only thing you can do is a right. And so from each of these points, there's only one way to get to point B. Then you could go back a little further. What about this point? How many ways? Well, we already know we've solved this problem over here in Squareville. We know there's two because you could go there and there. And once you did that, from each of those, there's only one way. So you go to each of them. There's two choices. And then there's only one choice for each of those. So 2 ways from there. And then kind of work your way back. See if that is helpful. So that's 2 hints. And then the last thing I'll say is a lot of people will say, well, they'll discover that it takes 10 moves to get from A to B. And they'll say, well, if there's 10 moves and I can go right or up on every move, then that's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 10 times. And if you do that, you'll get a pretty big number. That number is actually too big. And the reason is that if you do it that way, one of your possibilities is going right 10 times in a row. And you can't do that. There is a constraint in this problem that you can only have 5 rights and 5 ups. In fact, you need exactly 5 rights and 5 ups to get from A to B. So that actually makes the number of possibilities smaller and a little bit trickier to think about. But you can think about it that way and you get to some other really cool math. So those are some hints to get you started on Squaresville. Good luck. And as I always say, until next time, have fun playing with math.